One. Welcome to Washington East to West Sports. This is episode 27. I am Matt Beatty, joined alongside by Sean Beatty and Kevin Araldal as usual. If you want to be a part of the show, go ahead and tweet at us. I am at Beatty_Matt. Sean is at Sean_Beatty. Kevin is at Kev Believes the first team believes me at 3. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow our page on the Elan. Just let us know what you think of the show. There is a lot of stuff to get to today, gentlemen. I do want to mention something very sad, though, that we didn't get to last time. Jordan Morris was loaned to Swansea City. And, we talked about the Seattle Sports Commission's Athlete of the Year. And I said, Jordan Morris was my true athlete of the year. And then a few days later, he tears his ACL. So I want to take this time to apologize to Jordan Morris for tearing your ACL with my words. I didn't mean it. I will never say anything nice about you ever again. So that way you won't tear your ACL anymore. But I do want to congratulate KJ Wright for winning the Seattle Sports Commission's Male Athlete of the Year. So congratulations to KJ Wright. But gentlemen, let's talk about some live sports that we were able to not see, but I followed on Twitter on Sunday, and it is the Seattle Mariners being back in action. Yes, that's right. Spring training is officially upon us. And guys, we only have one game to talk about today. We'll have more to talk about next week. We'll have a guest next week to preview all things Mariners. But the Mariners won their lone spring training game so far, 5-4 against the San Diego Padres. And no, we're not crowning them World Series champions just yet, but let's just talk about what we saw in this game. So, Sean, tell me what you saw from this game. I mean, I know it wasn't en route, and we really couldn't watch it unless you guys had a way to watch it. I didn't really think there was a way to watch it.
It wasn't broadcast. You could watch it.
So, based on what you guys have seen, tell me what your thoughts were on the game. Just, we only have one game sample size, but at least there's some things that we can brush over. So, Sean, tell me what you thought of what the Mariners looked like on Sunday.
I thought the Mariners, for the most part, again, from what I saw, you can't watch the game. Marco pitched pretty well. Jared Kelenic got on base a couple times. Julio Rodriguez did his thing when it mattered the most. He said that dog just walked in. They said that freaked me out. They said he got out on the first time with off-speed stuff, and the last time he came up at the bottom of the ninth, the first pitch was an off-speed pitch. He was waiting on it and hit it up the middle for a single to score Jared Kelenic, which I hope is the thing happens more often. But I think the players we wanted and the young guys that played well. I mean, it's one game, but it was all good. I don't think you could watch that game and think anything bad came out of that.
Kevin, what were your thoughts on it?
Kevin likey mucho. Very much so. Yes. Yeah, pretty much everybody that you wanted to see kind of played, which was nice. Hander got back. Was 1 for 2, I think, or 1 for 1, 1 for 2, 1 for something like that. Seager did well. Kelenic and Julio. We just want more of that. Marco pitched well. Marmolejos went 2 for 2. Like, that was kind of interesting, and he played second. So it's like, is he going to steal the second base position? Like, be interesting. Like I said, I'm very intrigued to see what they do at second base this year with Shedlong, Marmolejos, and Haggerty as well. So, but overall, especially against a good, Padres lineup that's kind of going for it all this year. It seems like we hung in there, even though it is spring training. But it was nice to see. It was a nice way to start it off, so to speak.
Yeah, I followed most of the game to see Julio hitting Kelenic for the winning run. That was pretty cool. And then Julio saying after the game, you're gonna probably see that for a very long time. That's very nice to hear. I hope that rings true down the line for both of them. That would be very nice to see. I thought a lot of the players that were getting in the game were pretty good, and you guys talked about the future. You see some of it there with Cal Raleigh, Taylor Trammell, Julio, Kelenic. So a lot of the guys that you guys think are going to be the future.
Evan White.
A lot of these guys were getting in there and playing well. So that's good to see. And Marco projects to be the starter opening day, and he looked good as well. So I just want to know, you guys, I saw on Twitter from a few different people that this would appear to be the opening day lineup based on their starting lineup. Do you guys think that will be the case? It was J.P. Crawford, Haniger, Lewis, Seager, France, Moore, White, Murphy, and Fraley out there. Do you think that will be the opening day starting lineup, or do you project maybe someone just kind of coming in and maybe taking a spot or two? What do you guys think? Kevin, I'm going to throw it to you first.
For the most part, probably. Like I said, I think they're going to play out what they want to at second base. Like, I think you're going to see a mixture of Marmolejos, Haggerty, Shed, and then they're just probably going to go with a hot hand, and then keep the second one just for days off, and then also just for pitch running and rotation and stuff like that. Just kind of going through the positions in my head. Also because what did Dylan Moore play?
He's going to play second. He's a starting second baseman.
He was the second baseman? Oh, then Dylan Moore's probably going to take it, because Dylan Moore looked good too, from what I saw. So it'll be interesting. I out of him, if I wanted one, I'd probably want Dylan Moore just because I think he has the highest upside. But outfield wise, Kelnick, Haniger, and Lewis, yes. Would be yes. That's a naughty outfield. I like it. I mean, it's going to get better later on, but and then you just kind of bring in randoms for DH too. I mean, we'll see. Who knows what they'll do with the DH slot?
You have a million outfielders.
Yeah.
Only so mmany of them can play.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, luckily we're in the American League, so we have a DH slot, so that's nice, and that's going to help. But
well, to piggyback off what you said, Kevin, I think you forgot Trammell. Trammell will be up. So I think what's going to happen is it'll be maybe not right off the bat. I think you're right that Trammell won't start as the left fielder. You're right. They're going to kind of platoon it to start. I think Jake Fraley is projected to be the opening day left fielder. Some people say Marmolejos, but I think Jake Fraley is going to be the guy. I think the opening day, or that first roster we saw, will be the opening or close to the opening day roster, and had Jake Fraley playing. Between him and Marmolejos, maybe Bishop as well. But I think after a while, it'll be Trammell's job in left with Kelnick, and then once Kelnick comes up, Haniger will become the DH. I believe at a certain point, and I think the three younger guys will play the outfield with Mitch Haniger. Keeping him healthy and playing DH is probably what's going to happen. But yeah, the infield is. I mean, if Kevin's right, Dylan Moore. I just did a draft with fantasy people on the inside, and Dylan Moore was actually the first Mariner taken off the board of any Mariner, including Kyle Lewis and all those guys. His numbers, I mean, if he continues at that pace, is a stud. Evan White will pick it up. J.P. Crawford, if he can just get a little bit more consistency with the bat. But yeah, seeing Cal play those pitchers, yeah, I'm pretty excited.
I think, I think that Kelnick and Rodriguez are going to make a pretty strong case in spring training for them to be there day one. I unfortunately don't think that will be the case, based on everything that you guys have told me and what I've seen online. It's kind of disappointing. I know he'll be up there eventually. I want to give the man a full season personally, and I understand service time, all that stuff, but I just
to answer your question, hold on. Like what you said, if he plays like he did this day, the rest of the spring training, he's making the team.
Yeah,
Kelnick was all over the base paths, had good eye, made contact. Like he has to be if he plays that way the rest of the year or the rest of the spring training.
I hear you. I just, based on everything I've heard, I don't believe they are going to burn that year of service until they have to. It doesn't, even with the unspoken thing being said now, and they can't get away with it. It didn't stop them before when it was unspoken and it was still a thing. So
he's in a unique position because when he goes to arbitration court, he can literally play the recording and be like, I have audio evidence that you did this and you manipulated my playing time. So that's the unique position that he's not a lot of other players are in. So the Mariners were like, do we really risk in a couple years going to arbitration court and trying to argue with a guy who literally has us on recording being like, you manipulated my time.
Yeah.
So like, or they just say day one, if you're ready, you're good.
The Mariners have a lot of butt kissing to do, especially with Kelnick. And
Julio,
you want to make that boy happy. Yeah. So they're good. I think the Mariners are going to be smooching up real good.
Well, we are going to talk about that here in just a second. I do want to bring up Dylan Moore. You guys mentioned him. The last Mariners game I went to was in 2019. It was, I want to say, not the opening series, but one of the opening series against the Boston Red Sox. And I went with Colby, my friend, and we were up in the 300 level. And the Mariners were up, I want to say, like 8-4. And it's the 9th inning. And I just remember Dylan Moore had 3 straight ground balls hit to him, and he had 3 straight airs. And everyone in the building is like, what is going on? Are we really about to lose this game right now? But we hung on in the end to win the game. So
that was third.
Yeah, he was at third that game.
He plays everywhere. Yeah, so that's kind of like.
I remember they were giving Kyle Seager a day off, and it was just. I remember that game. That was a gross game. But they, I think it was.
Give him some solid. Give him some,
So, that was a little frightening to see, but, it's, I'm not going to base it all on one memory of me in person seeing him, but that is like the outstanding memory I have of Dylan Moore, unfortunately. So, but sounds like all is good right now, and hopefully he just continues to get better throughout the season. I do want to bring up all of the stuff, reaction to the Mather comments from around the Mariners organization. So Jared Kelnick, I think he received a lot of the fan support, and he just wanted to thank everyone from a tweet. Same with Julio. He also had that same thing. And then, I'm reading a book about it's called Intangibles. It's kind of the science of team chemistry. And I think that something like this can help bring this team even more together, especially when you see Ryan Divish tweeting out JP Crawford's shirt saying very boring, which was what was said about Marco Gonzalez, which is now his Twitter bio. So I think that while the Mather comments were a very dark moment for the Seattle Mariners, the organization, management, everybody, I think that hopefully moving on from him and, trying to make amends, but also the team kind of taking notice of that and, coming more together as a team can also be very impactful as well, because, everybody talks about bulletin board material, and, Mather certainly gave you some bulletin board material, as, Julio tweeted out, and I took that personally type deal. So I think that this will ultimately help the players in the field, and maybe kind of bring them a little bit closer together, maybe bring morale up a little bit. But what did you guys think of kind of the reaction you saw to the comments from the Mariners and throughout your Twitter dealings, I guess? Sean, what do you think?
I just realized, sorry, I was laughing, that you just described the plot of Major Leagues. Like, that is like the Mariners hate a front office or owner person and then rally together to become closer. That's the plot of the first Major League movie. I hope it's like that because they win. So I there's something to that. Like, I think a common enemy, kind of like you won't hate each other if you hate somebody else. I don't think hating each other has ever been an issue with this team. Like, Julio and Kelnick especially have been very close for a long time. They've always tweeted each other. Like, when the the Washington Nationals beat the Astros, they said, we're going to be there one day, because it said the Mariners are the only team never to play in a World Series game or get a World Series win. And they tweeted at each other, said, we're going to change that. I was like, well, I mean, they're determined to do this together. I think the team gets along really well. And yeah, you're right. Probably a little bit of it brought them together. Kevin is also right. The people that are still left have to say, okay, we will now mend this ship that this guy burned on the way out, but you guys like each other. We've got to fix this, use it to get closer, and let's do this thing together. Because it was terrible, but I think the players basically said the right thing, and they were all right in their what they said in response to it. So I think this could help them. I think you're right.
Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty much the kind of the same thing. I don't want to go too long into it, but yeah, nothing but good out of it, because I think it just makes them stronger. puts a little chip on their shoulder. And now that they know that, like, because Mariners didn't have to fire Kevin Mathers, they should have, and they did, which is good. But they technically didn't have to. They could have tried to sweep it under the rug, but they pretty much. I mean, yeah, he resigned, but to be honest, let's be honest, he got fired.
Yeah.
So it kind of just shows you that you're like, oh, okay, hey, they did the right thing. They care about us more than that piece of crap. So it kind of puts us in the step of the right direction. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts were on that entire situation. You can go ahead and tweet at us. But I do want to get to one quick topic before we move on to the Seahawks. So Sean and I on Twitter were kind of talking. This was more related to a hockey debate we were having, but I think it could be applicable to pretty much every sport. So we were discussing, Sean had a quote tweet of the top 5 San Jose Sharks of all time. Now, I was just picking it for the team that I wanted to have, not necessarily who is arguably the statistically best players or, the best players, because
Which
it's always
is
debate.
what the question asked. The question asked for 5 best players. It didn't ask you to make a team.
When you hear, okay, fine. I'll give you that. 5 best players. But I'm going to make a team. I'm making a team, okay?
But that's not what it asked you. That was the whole time I was arguing. It just said 5 best players, and you didn't have the best player in Sharks history on the team. That's not okay. Like, you don't get to do that and say you made the best team.
Debatable. But anyway, I just want okay, so I want to talk about this standard for players. So you mentioned this example of Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Brent Burns, how they're asked to do different things. So
people don't have any idea who you're talking about.
I know. I'm going to get into that here. So how each is measured differently based on what they're asked to do from the team. So I want to relate this to the Mariners specifically. So there's Julio, there's Kelnick, there's Haniger, there's all these different players on the team. And obviously their standards for success are measured differently. So when you hear that, I obviously think a double standard. Now, what Sean, when you were saying was that it means it's unfair. And I would say it is unfair for all these different standards for different players, because I think I don't want to speak for most players, but I would think most players want to, play great, win championships, reach the Hall of Fame. I think that's what they all want to do. But it varies based on what your standards are before you make it to the show. Like, for example, Kelnick and Julio, they're, big prospects. They have a lot of expectations. So their standard for success is different from a guy like Dylan Moore, like J.P. Crawford, Kyle Lewis. So what I'm saying is it okay to have double standards for players that are playing in the field? Obviously pitchers are measured differently because of different statistics, but isn't it kind of odd that one player could be measured better than someone else just because of certain aspects of their expectations? That is all I was asking with that question. So Sean, what did you think of that?
Double standard implies it's an unfair use of a standard. My thing is it's not unfair. I expect Aaron Judge, who's 6'7", to hit more home runs than Altuve. That's simple physics. He's bigger, swings the bat stronger. He's supposed to hit more home runs than Altuve. That's how you apply it. Like, I expect certain players to do certain things. There's certain skill sets that a player has. The Sharks example, one guy is so good at one thing, he's asked to do one thing. They're not if one guy was able to do everything, he's Mike Trout of baseball. There's not. Not everybody's Mike Trout. One guy's going to be able, D. Gordon. He's not going to hit as many home runs as Mitch Haniger. And to expect him to is ridiculous. He's expected to get on base and steal bases. I wouldn't say that it's unfair. I would say it's different. The double standard implies it's unfair. I would say it's just a different standard of player.
But when you have Brent Burns with the numbers, he has more of an argument for like a Hall of Fame than a Marc-Edouard Vlasic, right?
That's where analytics is coming from. Analytics is telling you there's more value than just it's an opportunity cost. That's the whole Jamal Adams thing, which we were saving for a later day. I have stats to prove that it was not a good year for him. It is an opportunity cost. When Brett Burns is in the offensive zone on hockey, he is sacrificing his actual job, which is as a defenseman, is to play defense. And oftentimes, they're playing right now, but last game he got caught and it literally cost the Sharks a goal because he was not in position because he was trying to score a goal. So that's what I'm saying. Like there's an opportunity cost, and Brett Burns' opportunity cost is getting smaller now as he gets older. Back when he was younger, he could cover that ground. He was great. He could score goals. He could play defense. Vlasic was always asked to just play defense, like you're comparing like Jamal Adams was a better safety than was it Maine in the New York Jets. Maine was great at a much better safety because he could cover, he could do all these other things. But people look at Jamal Adams and be like, he got all these sacks, he's a better safety. Well, no, there was an opportunity cost that came with Jamal Adams getting his 10 sacks, and that was yards and touchdowns that they were giving up because they didn't have guys in coverage where you didn't have to sacrifice that with the other guys for the Jets. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like they're
So I understand what you're saying, but would you so is the standard for Adams the wrong standard to have for the position he plays because
yes,
or is it because he's being asked to get sacks? Is that why you're holding this against him because of the position he plays?
If he's asked to get sacks, he needs to get home at a better rate. The problem is I have numbers. We're not going to get into the Jamal Adams debate now. The problem is he didn't get home enough because what the other teams did when he didn't get home was so astronomically bad for the Seahawks that basically like it was almost I'll just give you the quick estimate. The passer rating against when Jamal Adams didn't get home was 141 on the season. It was almost perfect. Opposing quarterbacks were basically perfect when Jamal Adams rushed and didn't get home. And Jamal Adams got home less than 10% of the time. So every game he stopped one drive, and the other drives, he basically gave up 3 touchdowns. So like that opportunity cost right there. We stopped 1 touchdown for 3 touchdowns. That's not good. That's the opportunity cost does not equal out there. It's not even a positive. If it was flipped 3-1, maybe you could justify it. If it was 2-2, maybe, but it's 3-1. It's not the good ratio. He should be blitzing less and in smarter situations. I'm not saying don't blitz with him, but like be smarter about it. Lower the opportunity cost.
So does that devalue the defensive back sacks number to you just because he had that opportunity?
Yes, he blitzed. It's the old NBA adage. DeMar DeRozan, when he was with Toronto back in the day, he scored all these points. Or Chris Bosh, he scored all these points because he's the only guy on the team that was even sort of good. He took all the shots because no one else was any good. He goes to the Miami Heat and is clearly like by far the third guy on the team because he's not close to the same level as Dwayne Wade and LeBron or something like that because he was just given the opportunity because no one else was there. Jamal Adams was given the opportunity because they had nothing else or he wanted to blitz. Was blitzing the best idea? No, but that's what they did. He blitzed more than any other safety in the league, so he got more sacks. That doesn't he didn't. Budda Baker got home the same rate he did. He just didn't do it as much. Like that, I think Budda Baker was 0.8% less or something like that. I did the math. Basically the same rate, and he just didn't do it as much. So people think Jamal Adams is better just simply because he blitzed more, and actually cost his team more touchdowns because of that.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. I still, I still feel there's a double standard. I don't necessarily think that it's unfair to those players. Like for Jamal Adams, like that number is significant, but it's
But you're ignoring.
I'm ignoring the team aspect.
The other one's over here. Yeah, he was responsible for 9 touchdowns just from blitzing and not getting home. It's basically per sack he gave up a touchdown because he blitzed.
I guess you can't necessarily point to Jamal Adams to say that is why they scored, but that is a factor. Yes. I
had the stats when they threw at Jamal Adams, or I was solely when he blitzed versus when he didn't blitz, what the team's ratings were. And it was clearly better when Jamal Adams blitzed. Teams wanted Jamal Adams to blitz. That's the point of the opportunity cost. Teams were better when he blitzed and wasn't in coverage. Just because he was a body back there. There's more bodies it's hard to throw into windows. He wasn't even good at coverage, but that's not the point. Just bodies back there.
Okay.
Sorry, Kevin.
Well, it's all good. I also wanted to touch on that topic at the very least, and that's a segue into the Seahawks since we were just talking about Jamal Adams. But we are not going to talk about Jamal Adams right now. We are going to talk about the ever ongoing saga with Russell Wilson. So I think it was the day after we recorded, 2 days after we recorded,
Monday, I think, or something. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, he didn't tweet out, but a lot of his camp told people, and then word got to the media. And Russ said that he wants to play in Seattle, but if a trade were considered, the only teams he would go to are the Cowboys, Saints, Raiders and Bears. His agent, Mark Rogers, said to ESPN. That is a tweet from Adam Schefter on February 25th. So, gentlemen, I just want to ask you what your thoughts are on this. What has transpired over this last week since we recorded last? Kevin and I talked before this podcast, so I know he's got some things to say. So, Kevin, take the floor. Tell me some of your thoughts here on this most recent Russell Wilson saga here.
And a lot of it has to go into our next topic too, which is the JJ Watt thing too. So I'm going to kind of save a little bit for that as well. Mainly, I don't read a little bit too much into it because one, none of those teams can really get him this year, even if they want. They can't trade for him just because of cap reasons and other purposes. One, Dallas can't because you'd have to probably give Dak Prescott over in that trade, and you can't because he's going to get franchise tagged. The Bears, the Bears was the random one because that just to me doesn't make sense. Other than someone brought up the theory of that when the GM and the coach get fired, it becomes Russell's team pretty much because Russell will have. They think that the owners will just bring in what Russell likes and use, hire the coaches that he wants to and kind of form from there, so to speak. Who else did he see? He said Philly and
Dallas, New Orleans, Vegas, and Chicago.
Before Kevin goes on, there was actually why I didn't really buy into it too much because there was actually 2 reports that said teams. I'll give you the other ones, Kevin.
I know they said Jets as well.
The Athletic, the initial article said Jets, Dolphins, Saints, and Raiders as well.
So Saints and Raiders.
There were 8 teams in 2 different reports.
Jets doesn't make sense. Well, the thing with the Jets, Jets can make sense because they have a crap ton of picks. They'd have to give up a crap ton of picks to get Russell Wilson. So that's the thing. So then it's like how much do you give away, and then do you have enough draft capital left to build around him? Because that team at the moment it doesn't matter. Like he's going to bring them to like a 5-6 win team. That's what he would do. Like at best, because he's still going to be running for his life, even though they're all line with Mekhi Becton and the old Seahawk tackle in the middle of the line is a little bit better, especially that you added Mekhi Becton on the left. But you still kind of in the same situation where Russell's going to be running around. Dolphins makes sense because it's getting better down there, but the John Gruden one is kind of interesting. But at the same time, too, you have to give up Derek Carr and a bunch of picks, which I don't know if he's willing to do. Plus, the defense is still crap, and your weapons over there are not nearly as good as what you have here. So you'd really, he has a better O-line down there. So I guess the Vegas one makes the most sense to me. But I don't really see it. Some people were like, "Oh, I don't get the John Gruden thing." I'm like, he's like, John Gruden's not going to bend. I was like, John Gruden freaking loves Russell Wilson. Like, he would trade for him in a heartbeat if he could. But at the same time, too, he's not going to screw over his franchise.
What about the Saints, Kevin?
The Saints with the cap and stuff like that.
Is that the only thing? Is that the only thing keeping him?
Really, just cap.
Because talent-wise, the Saints are like, he's ready to go.
Oh yeah, like don't get me wrong, like that's the destination you would want to go as the Saints. But like they have so much that they have to get rid of at the moment just to make cap. It's nutty. Like that would be really if they could work some magic and restructure deals to where they could bring him in and still keep the majority of that squad, then I could see it. Especially since the mayor went publicly and was like, "Oh, Sierra and Russell, come on down. We would love to have your family down here." And then everybody in Seattle told him to go F herself. But
including the Seattle mayor herself. Yeah. So
Russell's not going anywhere this year. Like it's super unlikely. I'd be very shocked, like super shocked if he went now and after this season. Then that's a different question, and we'll get into that at another kind of time. But it just I don't think it really is going to pan anything more, to be honest. But the whole next topic that we'll get into later on does add a little bit more urgency in Russell's case, so to speak, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So,
Sean, what are your thoughts?
I don't think he wants to be traded. That I think what the camp is doing is using what tools they have to get the public talking, to get the ball rolling, and to be like, look, this is public, this needs to happen. There, like people said, there's reports. Well, there's multiple reports of teams he said he wants to go to. I think it's just his camp, like, look, let's do this, let's talk about this. Like, Russell's been asking this for a while, nothing's happening, we're making it public, we're like letting everybody know. With that said, it does say if his things are not met, he is willing to leave. I do not, again, that's different than wanting to leave. He wants to win to stay in Seattle.
Yes.
But if it's not possible, because he's a legacy guy, we've talked about this before. He's legacy. He said in his first Super Bowl when they were going to play in Denver, he wants to win 5 Super Bowls. He understands that the way it's going, he's not even going to get to another one. So he's very worried about his legacy. Every player kind of should be, especially a quarterback. He has 0 MVP votes to his name. People keep saying like, oh, he's going to be locked for Hall of Fame. Name a quarterback who's never got 1 MVP vote and made a Hall of Fame. Like 0. He's going to be the one to break that. His legacy isn't what it should be. People don't view him what he should be, and he knows that. And he's worried about it. And he finally stood up to Pete Carroll, and it kind of got, according to the article, got shot down, and he wasn't happy with it, so he came out public with it. I think, again, he wants to stay in Seattle, but if push comes to shove, he will leave.
Yeah, the teams he just, listed, first of all, I mean, kind of like what Kevin said, it just doesn't make any sense for the Seahawks, to do it, because there's no team that's going to give you the amount that Russell Wilson is worth. Like, Stafford went to Los Angeles for a couple first rounders and a second rounder.
Stafford was a robbery, but yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, if that's what Stafford gets, then Russ is just astronomically higher, and there's just no team that can pay that amount.
Two. The Texans and the Cowboys, because they have Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. They have to come in the trade, and more has to come with them. I'm only trading a quarterback for another elite. Because Deshaun Watson's not staying. Deshaun Watson's not staying. They know their leash is short. And Dak Prescott, if he signs a franchise tag, he's done after that year. He's not staying with Dallas either.
But if you look at a Houston situation, you're going to have to give up Deshaun Watson and picks to get Russell Wilson. And then if you're Russell Wilson, you just went to an organization that gave up picks that has a crappy team.
It's not Russell's call. Russell, yeah.
Those are the trades that I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. Now, Dallas, it does have the weapons around it, but that defense is terrible too, to where you're going to have to be dropping a whole crap ton of, and then you're going to have to give up picks, so you can't shore up anything.
I want Zach Martin. You send me Dak and Zach Martin. Like that's what we're and a second rounder. That's what we're doing. I want 2 all pros.
See, here's the thing. It's like Dallas, what I want, Dak and Zach Martin and a few picks. Sure. But I mean, come on, that's not happening. I think we all know that's not happening.
But that's all I asked was like, if I'm in Seattle, I'm only answering 2 phone calls. It's for those two teams.
And with Houston, it just doesn't make sense. Just because if Deshaun wants to leave, what would make Russell want to go there? Like that's why I think Russ is probably like, I have a no trade clause. I am not going to Houston. Like, there is no chance he wants to go to Houston. So the only logical choice is Dallas, and Dallas is just probably not going to happen. Like,
Matthew, you said Houston makes no sense. We're going to segue to the next point. Look at what Houston's been doing to Arizona the last couple of years. None of that makes any sense. Absolutely none of it makes any sense. Houston doesn't make sense. None of what Houston is doing makes sense.
I mean, I'm not. That's not the argument here. Like, Houston not making sense doesn't mean they wouldn't like pull the trigger for Russell or something. Like,
I can see Houston's side. I can see Houston's side, but not Russell saying yes to the trade.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why it's not going to happen. So at this point, I do not see any trade happening. But based on this entire swirl, public, posturing, all that sort of thing, it makes me believe that Russ will leave after these 2 years. And it sucks to say that, because look, you've got Pete, who has control, and he just had an extension, and he's going to do things his way. And Sean and I had this discussion on Twitter. It's like, sure, Russ can try and do this, but he hasn't changed anything since he's been here. So what would public pressure do to change him now? I don't think it's going to work. I get what he's doing.
He hasn't tried public pressure yet.
But what does public pressure mean to Pete Carroll? I don't think it means anything. He's just got extended. Why would he cave?
If Paul Allen was here, it would mean something. Paul Allen is not here. If like Jerry Jones or something like that, or I don't want to say Jill's not a like true owner, but like a more active owner, it would mean everything. But Pete is very fortunate that the owner is who the owner is right now, or Pete is probably on the hot seat right now. That's the point. Russell's can't change who the coach is or who's in charge, but in a normal situation, Aaron Rodgers got his coach fired. Dak Prescott got his guy fired. Like, it happens all the time. Bill O'Brien got fired because Deshaun Watson tweeted about it. Like, quarterbacks win all the time, but in this situation, the ownership is very unique.
And that is why it leads me to believe that Russ will be leaving after these last 2 years on his contract. Like, there is no reason for Russ to stay if they do not do anything. Yeah. And we're going to get into
it's 3 years, by the way. It's 3 years left.
It's 3 years? Okay. Well, I mean, either way. You know, it hurts to say, but it leads me to believe he's going to leave. And, you know, having to think about it over these last few weeks, like I don't want this to be like a eulogy, but we had a good run with Russ. We had a good run. He'll be 35 by the end of his contract. And, you know, it might be similar to a Peyton Manning situation where the Colts just decide to move on. And unfortunately, it seems like Pete will make this become a reality where we will.
How are the Colts doing?
How are the Colts doing?
Yeah.
I mean, they had Andrew Luck for a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, we won't get Andrew Luck. How are they doing? How many Super Bowls, how many division championships, how many of all that stuff to happen?
I mean,
don't trade Russell Wilson, please, for the love of God.
I mean, I don't think he's going to get traded. I think he's going to just sign somewhere else. I just think.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, don't give up the franchise quarterback that everybody wants. Please don't. Everybody wants Russell Wilson.
Like, I understand. I want Russell too, but at the same time, it's a business, and it's also a little bit personal. It seems like between Pete and Russ now. And I ultimately think that is going to just fracture everything to where Russ will leave when he has the chance. Now, I don't want him to leave. I've said that before, but it leads me to believe that his time is running out here in Seattle. So that's what I'll say.
There's two things I'm going to touch on this. First, and we're going to get back to the Pete thing here in a second. A lot of people have been kind of shifting it as saying, because of what happened in the Super Bowl, and it's Tom Brady has his pick on what happens down there, which is a part of it, but it's also more of on the Patrick Mahomes side. Like, Patrick, what the Chiefs do is how you're going to win in the future. Like, and what he saw with Mahomes running for his life with barely any O-line, and now you're in a division that has all that stuff with, you know, that's a blood cutthroat division that we're going to get to in a moment. Is one of the more main reasons why you have to get him an O-line now, and why he wants to be a part of this offense, because he wants to keep playing further. For the whole Pete thing, it puts Pete in a predicament, because let's be real here. If Russell gets traded, Pete is gone. Period. Because he will be sub 500. And how many coaches stay for more than 2 years sub 500?
He'll retire before he gets fired. He'll just retire at 75 or 74.
It might be a Kevin Mathers type of thing where
he'll trade Russell. 2 years later, he'll retire and then just screw Seattle.
It could be like Bill O'Brien. He could just, trade up the house and then just be gone anyway.
That's exactly what will happen.
You have Pete for 5 years and you have Russell for 3. Russell's got to do something. This is why Russell's putting it all out now, because he sees the picture. He's like, Pete can just play the long stall game, and he's trying not to let him. He's gonna probably do something draft. He might do something this season, but drastically after this season, he's gonna probably try for a trade or say, I don't know if he would say he wouldn't play because he's just so competitive. But something is gonna happen to where it's gonna force Pete, because he knows that Pete can't win, especially since Pete is not a defensive guru. We've seen this now, because he can't draft. because literally he got it from the college game because he was there and hasn't drafted defense since. So his defense has been dog crap since 2016. So Russell has been carrying that team's ass for so darn long. So he knows this. And so he's going to play the rush game and not let Pete do it out. So something dramatic will happen in the next year or so, unless Pete just folds and just gives him the stuff that he needs, so to speak. But just because we know that, especially with the 12th man culture, who's now spoiled this crap, and I mean, the 2017 season when we didn't make the playoffs, like Seahawks Twitter just had a meltdown, like literally. Like now, imagine being sub 500 for a year, 1 year. Like it's just going to be, everybody's just going to flip. Everybody's going to be after Lisa Allen's ass, and Seahawks management.
I called her Jill. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. And being like, sell the team, give it to somebody who actually gives a crap, type of deal, and just because. And I think Russell deep down knows this, and so does Mark Rodgers. So they're literally forcing, because Pete wants to play the stall game. That's what Pete wants to do, because he knows he's extended for 5 years. He knows Russell's saving his ass. But without Russell there, he's going to get fired before that 5 years are up. Like it's just like, especially nowadays in the NFL, you don't get that shot. They will move on, especially after coaches like Mike McCarthy have effed up. So it's just kind of the battle back and forth. And I hate like all this online of them just saying like it's Russell versus the Seahawks. It's not. It's Russell versus Pete. Like it's not a Seahawks organization. It's Pete. Like stop saying it's not Lisa. It's not Lisa Allen and all the shareholders. They don't give a crap. This is a money hoarding shell for them. Like Pete is what has the power. What cares about winning. So it's Russell versus Pete. Stop saying Russell versus Seahawks. Like it's literally Russell versus Pete. I don't get that. So I think something will happen just because he knows that Pete can't go above 500 without him. So and he can go 500 from those.
I would like to counter the whole Mahomes thing. I don't think it is the Mahomes thing. I really think it's just Russ. He
named Brady. I think it's Brady.
I think it's mostly. I mean, it might be Brady, but looking at Mahomes and Russ the first 3 years when I was looking at this, they have the same playoff record, literally like the same playoff resume in their first 3 years.
Yeah. So I'm saying it's the style he wants to play. He wants to he doesn't want to do what Brady's doing. He wants to do what Mahomes is doing and throw the ball around.
He named in the article Brady because Brady had a say. Brady got I want Antonio Brown and I want Gronk, and they got those guys.
Like I said, it's a mixture of both.
Yeah, and Bruce Arians said at certain times, he's like, after a certain while, I just turn off the headset and let Brady call the game. Russell doesn't always want to call every game, but he wants some say in like, hey, let me run this, let me do this, let me get a tight end I want, or things like that. He just wants the say. He wants to be in the room. Like they don't have to agree with everything, but he just wants to be in the room. And when he stormed out of the meeting, that's the disconnect. He's not considered as Brady because he was asked to basically to leave. That's what he wants. He just wants to be.
Also, at the same time, into the section that we're going to transition to, you're now in a divisional. You're now in a division that has just absolute ferocious nightmares at defensive line, and in a Super Bowl you're going to go against probably a good defense, and you saw what Mahomes.
I mean, they had 4 guys who weren't the starting O-line in that game. I mean, like that was a very unique situation. But yeah, I agree with you.
But the Seahawks have also been playing with injuries at O-line as well. So like Russell is saying, like you expected, like look what Mahomes had to do just to try to win that thing, and despite his receivers not catching freaking balls, like he's like, and you want me to do that with less?
That was the best defense to be in the playoffs in a while, though. Let's just be clear, though. That's not usually the norm.
San Francisco last year, the year before that, the Rams, like good defenses.
I mean, like.
The Rams were.
Yeah, I mean the Rams were.
The Rams were 16th
defense that year.
They were 16th in the league in defense.
And then the 49ers, I will give you that. Like that defense,
the
carried
49ers
them
were good.
Last year. Absolutely, you're right there. But it ended up not being enough against Mahomes. So
the Eagles were 11th when they won. So it's usually not the. Yeah, but I mean, like the Tampa Bay was like 5. Like them and the Rams are like the outliers of this, and then the Seahawks 2013.
But there's going to be some form of like pass rush, is what I'm saying. Like you need to protect the quarterback. Keep him up.
Be solid. I agree. You need to be like, there's a solid defense. You're not getting like a bad defense in the Super Bowl.
But especially, and let's use this to transition into the next one. Like you're in a division that literally just has nightmare row of defensive line, with the addition of J.J. Watt to the Cardinals. Like, do you want Russell to not like to get? I mean, he had, other than the 1 year, he hasn't got hurt. But like, it's time. Like you can't ignore it anymore, especially now that you have that. I mean, even beforehand, he needed it. But it's time to address the offensive line. So I'm going to go into my little segment, what I did on Twitter when I was saying it's time to adjust shit and transition to something that Matt's going to definitely not like. It's time to say goodbye to KJ, folks. It's been a nice run, but we're not going to re-sign you. It's time to say goodbye to Shaquille Griffin. It's been a nice run. We're not going to re-sign you. Mr. Diggs, we need to free up some room. It's been nice. Blair's better. Have a nice life.
Might as well cut Flowers too.
You can have Flowers as backup because it's gonna be cheap. To be honest,
you save $3 million if you cut him.
Oh, then goodbye.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, goodbye. Nico Thorpe can be the backup. Let's do that. You put in Barton as the third and run Brooks, Bobby, and Barton as your line. You put Dunbar and the guy that we got from the 49ers that just went off last year. I can't remember his name.
DJ Reed.
Aren't they both free agents?
You can re-sign him for like, you're not going to have to give him what Shaq money is going to cost. Like Dunbar, you can get for super freaking cheap, especially after the whole
probably
with the law crap.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably, maybe. Yeah.
I hope you're right.
Then, DJ played well, so he's probably going to want a little more.
Think that he can get more elsewhere. Good luck to you, bro, because it ain't happening.
I mean, I agree with you, Kevin. Me and Matthew both agree. Yeah. Do it if you can, but I mean, they're still their own player, and they think what they're going to think, you know.
Well, the market's going to give them a nice reality check, especially with the COVID hits. Go and now, as according, I think it was Adam Schefter that reported it. I can't remember who. That the Green Bay Packers are not planning to re-sign Lindsey. Most likely, he might be a cap casualty. Go get him and Trent Williams, or just get two solid offense. Like you gotta put money into that offensive line. Like you've been just not doing it the whole time. You don't really have any draft capital. If Pete Carroll's a defensive guru genius that he thinks he can be, and honestly, Cody Barton hasn't played too terribly, and you got to see what you have in the man, or see what you have in BBK if you want to do BBK. I don't give a crap. You saw good instances out of Blair, who can play this at the safety, and Ugo will be your corner, or your nickel corner. Just do it. Seriously, like what you can free up enough draft capital to go sign a guy like Lindsey and Williams. Do it. Like, and let Russell like cook. Just like you saw that you can let him score 40 points or more a game. Give him an offensive line to where he can get to his weapons and cook and score 40 points. Because honestly, when it comes down to it, if we sign all these kids again, they were 22nd in defense last year, I think, or 24th, whatever. Bringing back KJ Wright would be nice. He did some great stuff. It's not going to bring us to a top 10 defense. Like, it's time to let Russell do his thing, keep him happy. And honestly, other than Patrick Mahomes, I trust him to outduel anybody else in this league. Just because I would say Aaron Rodgers, but we saw what happens when Aaron Rodgers gets punched in the face. You don't like it, he likes to go home.
We saw what happened when Russell got punched in the face too. Just I can't say that again. He didn't like it
for every single quarterback. That's absolutely.
They don't like it.
Well, I mean, yeah, true. But he also threw 4 picks and then went back to a Super Bowl. So it's like I think Russell But also Russell's just tired of it too, because one, Aaron Rodgers hasn't been sacked nearly as much as what Russell has. Like Russell's just tired of it, and I get it. Like earlier in his career, he was, he kept fighting and stuff like that, but now he's just like, okay, I'm about to be 32. This is bull crap. I shouldn't have to do this. Like I should just be able to rely on my talent, have a nice clean pocket, and just throw that sexy deep bomb that I like to do. It's time to build around Russell. And if Pete Carroll's this, like I said, if he's this defensive genius, awesome draft boy that he thinks he is and wants to prove it, go do it. Go get that in the draft. Go pay for an offensive line this offseason. Use your little 4 or 5 draft picks to shore up that defense, and let's go. Like we've seen that we have the weapons to do it. Bring back Swain or Ugo or not Ugo.
So you keep calling him Swain.
I'm trying to think the third. Well, Swain be the third receiver or
receiver.
the
I was thinking right tackle.
Yes, sorry.
Swain.
Who's the kid that we like out of Hawaii? Shoot.
Ursua.
Starts with a U. Ursua, yes, as your third. But let the man cook and let him score 40 points on teams, because nobody's going to probably cook him other than Patrick Mahomes.
Can we address both of those,
Maybe
Kevin? Let's address both of those. So let's start with the first part. So JJ is now with the Cardinals. Source JJ from a tweet. So that was cool. That was cool to see him just like tweet out where he was going. That was cool to see. Just controlling what he wanted to control there. That was cool. But also I do want to while we have this time. So you mentioned that JJ's there. They've got Chandler Jones, 1-2 in sacks since 2012. And, we were talking a little bit before this podcast about how good this makes the Cardinals. So I want us to right now, as the teams are, let's rank the NFC West top to bottom. So I will go ahead and start. This last year, I thought the Cardinals were going to be there. They were not. They were 8-8. I think that with a year between Nuke and Kyler, and now it shored up that defense a little bit with JJ. I don't think it makes them an amazing defense with JJ, but they have enough pieces to win this division. And I think they will win this division next year, as long as Kyler can stay upright and not run for his life as much, or run for his life down the field for touchdowns. Second, I would probably give it to the Rams. I think they upgraded at quarterback to make them a better offense. That defense is still very good. So I think that they will probably slot into the number 2. You do have some, mystery of how well Stafford will perform, because he's never been to the playoffs. So it's a matter of how well he will do.
Stafford's been to the playoffs.
I mean, never done well in the playoffs. He's been to the playoffs and never actually won a game. But I think he's enough of
a against the LOB, Matthew. Let's give him a break in his playoff game. So
okay, so I think that puts the Rams at number 2. I think the Seahawks are 3, just because I think that Russell will make this offense very good, and they will be 3rd place playoffs. I'm not going to make that prediction right now because I have no idea what the rest of the league looks like. We're just ranking the NFC West. And I think that 4 is the 49ers. The defense will be good, yes, but Jimmy Garoppolo is the worst quarterback in the division, and I think that's why they will be the last 2.
So they went to a Super Bowl, got hurt, and you think they're that team?
I don't think they're that team. I think they are the worst team in the best division of football.
They're not going to rely on Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, they didn't need. Yeah, they just had their entire team explode.
Okay, well then rank the teams. What do you guys think? Sean, go ahead.
Oh man, right now I say Rams number 1, because that quarterback is an upgrade over Goff. Oh man, the draft really changes a lot of these things, though. I will say.
I'm saying right now.
Yeah, I will say 49ers 2. Man, it's a coin toss. Is Seattle 4th? No, I say Seattle then Arizona. But that's close. Those last, I could easily be convinced that Seattle's 4th in this division already with that move. Because again, Matthew, you said 8-8. I'll agree. I think Arizona is better. They lost their best defensive player to start the season, and their quarterback was hurt for the last 7 games of the year, and they were 8-8. They could have easily been a 11-10 win team.
But you just put them 4th.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I could be easily talked that they're better than Seattle. But the problem is the Rams and 49ers have such better coaches and talent than the other 2 teams. They're much more talented and coached than the other 2 teams.
When you guys talk about the most important position in football is the quarterback, and they clearly have the worst quarterback.
But that's the problem. That's the problem. That's all Seattle has. They have the worst coach, the best quarterback, and the least amount of talent and resources spent wisely. What are we doing? There's a quarterback, as you saw in the Super Bowl, can only do so much. Russell can only do so much when he's told you cannot cook. And you cannot cook, you're going to lose to Jared Goff. That is what happened.
I understand what you're saying. I just, I don't believe in Jimmy G to do it again. That's all I'm saying.
Let's say this. You get rid of Pete Carroll. I say the Seahawks finish much higher in the division. That's the problem.
Kevin, what do you think right now? What are the teams?
So I'm looking for a dice because I was going to roll that. Because honestly, it's hard to.
Gotta pick right now.
Yeah, right now.
Both pick.
But the thing is, with free agency, it's hard to pick.
I know. I'm saying right now.
That's what I said too. I didn't like it, but that's Matthew asked right now.
What we know right now with the teams, how they are right now, how do you rank them? I think he is rolling a dice.
Well, the thing is, I don't know who's the quarterback of the Niners.
Right now,
it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's right now, Kevin. There's no trades, no more free agency, nothing. It's right now. Teams are healthy. Go.
First is the Niners, just because they have Sean McVay's number. They have. Kyle Shanahan has always put it in. It's a weird rock paper scissors. It's kind of odd. They have their number, the Rams have our number, and we kind of have the 49ers number.
We get lucky. We beat them a couple times.
Yeah, we beat them a little. Yeah, even though we kind of normally split. So in my opinion, that's beating them because we shouldn't, so to speak. We should get mauled by that, especially since we have a crappy O-line and they have one of the best front fours in the league.
Who's 2?
It's gonna be hard because they're gonna lose Sherman, but he's still on the team because we're going right now. So
who's 2?
2 is the Rams. Just because I have more faith in Stafford with the staff around him and the scheme. It's it's hard to explain to Matt, but the weight of what Detroit is, it's literally Stafford has been playing with an anchor around his neck and has been doing okay. He now gets to take that anchor off and gets to put on wings and fly like a bird, but a flying ram, so to speak. He's going to get a better O-line. He's going to have better weapons. He's going to have a better scheme. He's getting a top 5 defense. He has a better arm than Goff. He has better accuracy than Goff. He throws better he's more mobile than Goff. He can sidearm and
You're more mobile than Goff, so
that's very true.
That's true. I pay to see Kevin run on the sideline away.
He actually is probably the best sidearm thrower behind Mahomes. He's actually better than Russell at sidearm throwing.
There's another sneaky one in that conversation. It's Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers always had a mean sidearm too.
He does. And actually, Dak has a little bit of underrated as well. Dak has a very underrated sidearm throw. But Stafford has can throw crazy on the move, just sidearm throw it down for 20 yards.
Who's 3?
3 is here's the pro, and this is why I'm going to say it's a tie.
You pick one. You have to pick one.
So, and the reason what Matt's not taking into suggestion is that even though he's mobile, that offensive line for Arizona is a hot pile of garbage. They're also Kyler Murray is also going to be under fire, running for his life.
He's been hurt every year,
and he's more, as we've seen, he's more prone to get hurt. Russell's smarter with his body, and does the Pete Carroll took and just take it type deal, like. So, but at the same time, our defense isn't good. Their defense isn't that good.
Who is it, Kevin? Just pick one. Just say Arizona. Just say Arizona.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Arizona just because Pete wants to run the ball. They're gonna run the ball.
Seattle's last. There we go.
And they're stupid for doing it. Like, you have Russell Wilson. What the frick are you doing?
Yeah,
I know, it makes me shiver too. Like,
I know, I got a chill in my spine when you said run the ball more, and I couldn't.
Also, too, like, why does everybody want to come to this division? It's murderer's row.
Okay, I can I say something real quick? I do want to say, Pete or Russell isn't not to blame here, because we know quarterback sacks and hits are partially.
Oh, yes, and he admitted to that on Dan Patrick.
Yeah, Seahawks O-line last year ranked 10th in what they can control. Now, O-lines are not great at grading because it's like how much chemistry. No, just in total. But like the issue is like you don't know like how much pressure is like
what the
player is asked to do individually, and what they're seeing and all that stuff. So the best metric they have now, they're about 10th, because Russell holds on the ball and tries to make plays happen. The issue also is like the O-line has to get on the same page with what the offense wants to do, like run shorter stuff like we talked about. I think that's what also needs to happen. If these guys are going to come after him like they're going to, Russ needs to be like, look, and the offensive coordinator and Pete needs to understand, like, look, I know you love taking, like DK said, quote, Pete Carroll likes to run deep shot. Teams know you're going to do that, and J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones are coming. You can't just run deep shot, Pete Carroll. You have to give Russell like an opportunity, because he can run around out there all he wants, but he's going to get hit, he's going to get sacked, and he's going to get hurried when you do that. Mm-hmm. Give him a chance to get rid of the ball quickly. You need to get with Russell and develop a game plan to do that, because it's going to continue if you don't. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. Yep. They have some. What I'm saying is they have some talent in the O-line. I don't think they're top 10. I think the metrics a little off. I agree, but like, I don't think it's as bad as the worst. It's not the worst. Arizona's, Kevin, to your point, was actually like 30th.
Oh yeah, their O-line was terrible.
So Kyler really was running for his life. So Russell has a little bit more to work with than he thinks, but I think Russell also knows that he's asked to do that. Pete puts that on him. He's like, okay, make a play. Well, if you stop running it on first and second down so much and like having then make me bail it out, I'm having to do that less, and you get a couple yards, or take the chunks, take the little pieces, versus always like run, pass. That would help a little bit.
And so to address the second part of what Kevin said, I understand sacrifices will have to be made in order to bolster that offensive line. I don't necessarily want to sell the entire defense, because as you mentioned, our defense was not good to begin with. And if they can't stop anybody, then, I don't know how much more you can ask of Russ, even with a new offensive line.
We were 5-0 when the defense stopped nobody. Russell carried us.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
Here's my thing.
Then why couldn't he do that the entire season?
They took it away from him. It said in the article. They literally said no.
He literally, and this is why like Pete's really bad. Instead of Pete being an actual NFL head coach and saying, okay, we're going to adapt to what the Bills showed us and improve the pass rushing game, he's just like, scrap it all. We're going back to the run, because I don't have the capacity to make a game plan to tweak and mold Russell's pass game.
Yeah.
I want to be conservative. I got freaked out from what I saw with the Bills, and I want to just be safe. That's literally Pete Carroll showing that he's a mediocre coach.
Pete or Russell named the Bills game in the article that they had a meeting after it. And my issue was like, so I guess they didn't take the training wheels off then, but they said like, look, putting it back on, and then they had one more bad game and they still won the game. So they were like, what, 5-1 or something? And then he goes, we're done. And so people act like Russell was like great and then decided to get bad. When someone tells me like Russell played bad at the end of the year, I go, yes, but like you can't tell me he was an MVP to this at the end of the year with nothing more external than just Russell. Something else had to happen to make it go from this to this. So that's why it leads me to believe that yes, Russell could have played a little better, but also like Pete or something external obviously happened in that locker room. And Kevin's right. They changed exactly what they did, and then it made the offense worse. And that's the biggest factor in taking Russell first half season to Russell second half season was that decision, not Russell's individual play.
It didn't get noticed because we played a sloth of crap teams.
Us as here, we noticed it, but like, the general public.
But people are like, "Oh, that defense is playing." Like the whole national media, be like, "Oh, that defense got turned around and stuff like that." I was like, "No, they're just playing crap."
We played Dwayne Haskins. Like,
and another thing too, to kind of shore up to kind of make Matt feel more comfortable about what's going on with the defense.
By the way, I was just playing devil's advocate. I
know. But like okay, say for example that we do get rid of KJ, Shaq, and Diggs, and then you bring it, you have Barton play in KJ spot. Well, technically you probably have Brooks in KJ spot, and then have Barton go to Brooks. And then you have Dunbar and all that. Like people think that like, oh my God, you lost KJ, and that now. Yes, KJ is like friggin' phenomenal. It's not going to be nearly the same. But also at the same time, too, Barton's not going to be out there being like, what do I do? What do I do? You know, he knows how to play football. Like we've seen, like he had clutch moments during the year. Like he's not going to bring the same everything like KJ did. There's going to be more errors, more mistakes. But like people are going to be like, oh, with him out there, it's just going to be a touchdown every drive but like he's still going to make, like he knows how to play football. Like he's going to play to a certain level to where they're going to make stops still. And honestly, he's the reason why we beat Minnesota.
What Kevin is saying is like, it's kind of opportunity cost. You can downgrade at linebacker for an upgrade at lineman, or an O-lineman.
Pete didn't want to play Alton Robinson, and he played half a season and got 4 sacks, 5 sacks. Yeah. Like you gotta let the kids play and see what you got. Like you need to now focus this toward, like as Sean said, 5-0 when Russell, like because Russell is going to outduel your opposing quarterbacks.
Can I say I do want to bolster the offensive line, but you guys mentioned 5-0, he was cooking. So is it the offensive line because he was cooking for those 5 games? So it seems like the problem is Pete here.
That's the biggest issue.
Adapt. They were dumb.
Well, because the Bills played a very good game, and Russell, the offense still put up 34 points in the game. The issue wasn't that. The issue was then they adjusted too much, and then when the game got tighter and Russell needed the O-line to do something, they weren't as good because Russell's playmaking ability was covering. I said this again. He covered a lot of bruises up because he was milking this thing. He was making it all look good. When the margin for error, his run, and we need this one drive. When the margin for error got smaller, the issues became more evident. That's why I didn't agree with the O-line grades, because we were graded on the full season, not when they were actually under the microscope. When they were under the microscope, the O-line didn't play as well as we thought they did.
Well, I would also like to say that you guys mentioned the run, pass. I think that has a lot more to do with it, because if you're predictable, it's easier to call defense against what you know is coming. So I understand we need to bolster the offensive line, but at the same time, it sounds like part of the problem is play calling and Pete. So I don't want to set so to your point, Kevin, I understand investing in the offensive line. I don't want to have Russell have to win those shootouts. I would like to have what Sean said, a few blowouts. It's not going to be a Jets every time, but if we invest in the offensive line and a little bit in the defense, then we'll have hopefully the best of both worlds, where we'll have a defense that's strong enough to where Russ doesn't have to score 40 a game.
What Kevin said, draft defense and pay O-linemen.
Yeah.
And then play the guys you draft. And then play the guys you draft.
There can be games where we're not giving up that much points. If Pete is the defensive guru that he says he is, he should be able to use the young players to still have a good defensive game plan and keep them under a certain amount of points. Yes, now losing Barton's not going to be KJ. Or Brooks. That's not debatable. but they can still be good enough to where like they're still keeping teams under a certain amount of stuff. At the same time, too, to add on to what happened in the transition, a lot of it, Russell, a little bit of it was on Russell, too, as we kind of noted in our past episodes that fans have been seeing. Russell was terrible in his progressions. They switched Tyler from 1 to 2. DK became the number 1, his first read, and then Tyler came 2. That trend, I can't remember what game it happened, but it did happen.
Yeah,
it was after the Arizona game. But and so a lot of times he just kept staring down DK because he thought DK was going to get open, and then he took too long on that, and that's on Russell. Russell needs to go through quick possessions because he needs to know that he doesn't have the time to do it, and he was doing that in the beginning of the season. He was going boom, 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 just like going through progressions, seeing who was open, making that throw.
Even if it was getting one-on-one coverage a lot,
and a lot of times too, he had like the short dump offs. Like Chris Carson was going crazy, like just because he would do it short, like he'd be under pressure, like especially in the Atlanta game, like Jared Garrity or whatever the heck his name is, I don't know. The main pass rusher for Atlanta was getting after him, and then he would just dump it off to Carson. Carson would run it for like 15 yards. Like it's like that's what you should be doing. Like if they're gonna blitz, do a little screen outside run to the running back, or have a slant route to where you can get somebody for 7 yards and do some stuff after the run. Like that's the stuff you need to be doing. And then just like it shifted because at the same time too, play calling definitely changed after the Bills game to where that stuff probably wasn't nearly as available because the plan was go routes for DK and he's looking for that shot. And then he's just like, well, crap, it's not there. And it's 4 seconds and I'm on the run. And oh God, where's Tyler? Type of deal. Like it's a little bit of both. So it's the play calling needs to change, but also at the same time too, Russell needs to be more quicker with his progressions. I love that you love DK, and DK also needs to get better as a receiver and he will grow. But at the same time too, you can't stare down DK for like 5 seconds hoping that he'll get open.
We also talked about too, he had a lot of one-on-one coverage and just stare him down. I'm like, if you're going to look at him, just make the decision to throw it or don't.
You got to do it. Like
move
you can't
on.
just got to trust DK to use that body to get that ball. And that's what DK needs to do to improve. Yeah. Like in those situations, be like, okay, DK is in one-on-one. Instead of staring there and waiting for him to be like, I trust him. Pop it. Just throw that puppy downfield. Let DK pop it. Pop that.
You would need to sound clip that and just pop it right there.
All right. Well, we are going over here, so let's wrap up here. So I just want to mention Deshaun Shedd was added to the Seattle Seahawks coaching staff. So that is interesting news. What do you guys think? Is it going to be significant? I think if I were guessing, I would imagine he'd be a defensive backs coach or maybe just a defensive assistant. But that was per Michael Schonduger of the Athletics. So that is hopefully should be good news for the defense to have someone who's been there before, knows the defense, and he does know what Pete likes, so he could probably help with that aspect as well. And I do want to mention that Sue Bird officially resigned with the Seattle Storm before we get out of here.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years, 4 titles,
that's,
20 years.
Really.
Like that's consistency in Seattle that we like. So tell us what you think of that entire Russell Wilson, J.J. Watt, the NFC West. That is the murderer's row, as Kevin likes to call it. Let us know. I am at Beatty_Matt. Sean is at Sean_Beatty. Kev is at Kev's Believe, with the first team believes being a 3. Let us know how you would rank the NFC West teams. Let us know what you think of this entire Russell Wilson drama, Pete Carroll, all that sort of stuff. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow our Eli Network page. Gentlemen, next week it's going to be all about the Seattle Mariners for the most part, unless there is some news that we need to talk about.
Kevin's Russell bomb comes first week.
Let's plan on next week being the ultimate Seattle Mariners preview.
I want to talk about Mariners.
We're going to have a guest on to talk about the Mariners with us, so please tune in next week for the ultimate Mariners preview. So anything you guys want to plug before we get out of here?
Nope.
John, you've got your other podcast. You got your league.
We're not ready for that yet. We're not even posted it yet. So just follow us at Sean_Beatty. Yell at us in person or over Twitter.
But wear a mask if you're in person with us, because that's just not cool.
Yeah. Also, if you have any other it doesn't have to be Ryan Lindley or Lindsley, and if you have if there's some player you have in mind, shout at us and we'll look at it. Like if you I like this tackle over on this team who's going to be a free agent, and we'll look at it.
Yeah. All right. So for that, we will see you next time on Washington East to West Sports.